May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It is highlighting the importance of talking about mental health and the tools and resources that are available to help. But a few new studies suggest that this big push to focus on mental health in recent years may not be having the positive effect that it was intended. In fact, some are even suggesting it's having some unintended consequences. So Dr. Coley, I'm so glad that we're bringing this up because I never would have thought about that. I always talk about it, right? Yeah. As someone that has suffered from mental health issues. So how could talking about mental health and raising awareness turn into it being a bad thing?
This is a bit of a surprising studies that are emerging, because if you think about our attention like a spotlight, if we're constantly turning a spotlight on our negative emotions, what does it do to those negative emotions? It amplifies them. It makes us feel more helpless because we don't necessarily have solutions. And there's a saying in medicine that says neurons that fire together wire together. So you keep triggering that circuit in your brain. Life is hard. I'm sad. Things are difficult. This is really hard on me right now. Especially, for example, like talk therapy, which we do a lot of. That's what it does. It's 1 hour of talking about how things are awful. It can actually cement those negative emotions. What else we've noticed is that people have some variance in their emotions every day, right? Some days we wake up, we feel more energetic. Some days we feel a little more fatigued. Our body is different every day. Our mind is different every day as well. So some days we feel happier, some days we're more anxious, some days we're sadder. This is normal variance. And if we overinterpret this as something bad, or, you know, in our young kids, for example, someone breaks up with your teenager, they feel sad. That is a normal emotion. And if they think, oh, this means I'm depressed, that's an overinterpretation of emotion.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
And it's trendy to sometimes do that on like the TikToks. It's like, I'm not trying to put anyone down, but it can be that way, don't you think?
Well, and I think social media has made it so people are thinking this is a trend. I need to jump onto this and create a community with others because I'm also feeling some of this as well. And that's been part of it as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to push back on all of you a little bit because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are saying, yes, but isn't this important so that people that do need help feel seen, so they don't feel alone, and they know where to go get help?
It is so important. But I think what we're realizing is that unlike medications, if you have hypertension, I treat everybody the same way, right? I give them a medicine to lower their blood pressure, to treat their high blood pressure. With mental health, it's not necessarily the same. We need to individualize treatment plans, and talking about it with everyone doesn't necessarily make some people feel better. It can actually make them feel worse, particularly in our teenagers and our young kids whose brains are immature. They can't process emotions in the same way. So if you keep telling them they're feeling sad, or let's talk about whether you're feeling sad, they could actually start to change the way their mind is evolving. Their reactions to emotions could actually
their like neural groove becomes deeper.
That's the looking glass theory.
Yeah.
Mead, I believe. Mead.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe so. Somebody fact check that. I'll be shocked if I remember that.
Fantastic.
I think we have Dr. Shocker here, not a candy striper.
Beautiful job.
Doctor.
Amazing. All right.
Would you like some candy?
I don't know if that's what it was.
So ridiculous.
I apologize. I should have had more information. You're right. Okay, I'm going to switch gears here. This is a little bit scary. We're going to talk about Alzheimer's. A lot of relatability here with our viewers. There's a new study that suggests there are actually genetic factors that are not just happening, they actually cause the disease. In fact, Chris Hemsworth was tested for these genes in his Nat Geo show Limitless and revealed that he has 2 copies of the gene. So talk to us about this study and what it found.
Yeah, I mean, we're still figuring out Alzheimer's, but what we know is that a subset of Alzheimer's is genetic. It's related to your genes. And what we've realized is this gene called ApoE, which is involved in moving cholesterol around our body, it cleans up the inflammation in our brain. If you have a version of it called ApoE4, which about 25% of us does, your risk of Alzheimer's is very high. If you have 2 versions of the ApoE4, which Chris Hemsworth does, only 2 to 3% of us, it's going to cause Alzheimer's. So it's not just a risk factor.
Those 2 will cause it.
Now this study is telling us most likely this is a cause. It's not just a risk factor, but it's going to lead to Alzheimer's. In fact, in your 50s, and he's only 40, but in your 50s, you'll start to see blood test changes. In your 60s, you'll start to have that cognitive decline. And the Alzheimer's you get will be more aggressive, a different Alzheimer's that manifests itself early.
Can I get a blood test to find out? I don't know if I would ethically for myself.
Yeah, how do you do
that?
Yeah.
You can get a blood test. Any of us can. The Alzheimer's Association Association does not recommend getting in. But I don't know how I feel about this right now, because of course we don't have treatments. We don't have anything we can do. And having a diagnosis, knowing you're going to go on to get Alzheimer's, can have, financial implications, psychological implications, implications for your kids, your family, how you interact with other people. So most healthy people at this point probably shouldn't get a blood test. But if you have a family history of having Alzheimer's, it may be something to talk to your doctor about, talk to a genetic counselor, and see if it makes sense for you to get it tested.
Well, Tori mentioned testing. I watched Limitless, and I was like, I really liked it. I suggest if you haven't seen it, it's a really cool show. But I was wondering the same thing. Should I get tested, or is ignorance bliss in this case? Is there something that we could slow down the process or even eliminate it, maybe in the future?
Nothing medically right now. I'm hoping that these kind of studies will prompt development of medicines that we could say, oh, you have these genes, we could give you this early before you get those plaque depositions in your brain. But right now it's all lifestyle factors that we can really do, Jeff. Hopefully we're doing many of these already, getting good sleep, getting good exercise, eating Mediterranean diet that's been linked to better cognitive outcomes, socializing with each other. These are things we should already be doing. But if you keep your bad cholesterol less than 70, and this is interesting, you will prevent two of the worst outcomes that each of us worries about. The first,
heart disease,
stroke, right? Heart disease, yes, also, but we worry about stroke more than we worry about heart attacks. And second is dementia.
Wow.
So that's a different type of dementia called vascular dementia, where the small blood vessels get clogged with cholesterol. But there are things we can do for other types of dementia that we really ought to start doing.
All right. And Dr. Coley, you have to remove my PhD. It was not Mead, the sociologist. It was Cooley.
Cooley. So close to Coley.
Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Coley. DBL Nation, follow Dr. Coley on social media at Pyle Coley MD. Also be sure to subscribe to her YouTube page. Plus check out her podcast, Heart of Medicine, wherever you listen to your podcasts.